Power pink is a unique indicator from the perspective that it is a deep cycle indicator. It's one of two. Swing gray is our primary deep cycle indicator, identifying cycle highs and cycle lows. The power pink indicator is paired with power blue, and the vast majority of the time power pink is lowest when they go down and highest when they go up. Sometimes power blue will be highest. If it is, it's treated as if it is the short-term deep cycle indicator as well. By short term or short cycle, we mean that the power pink will identify short movements within the long-term movement, or excuse me, the long-term trend, or even what is the swing gray deep cycle indicator. The swing gray acts like a long-term trend line in some respects. It will keep on going up when there are pullbacks or things like this. Keep in mind, we basically have three types of lines. We have the real fast lines like zip red and swing pink, trend red, power red. Those are swing Zion. Those are real fast lines. In fact, all of the zip lines are fast. Then we have slower lines like the 7 short-term lines, and those are your trend trio, yellow, pink, blue, your power orange and green, and your swing red and green. 3 groups, 7 lines, identifying the short-term trend. Those 7 lines do not identify pullbacks or rallies. We go to the fast lines to pick up the pullbacks and the rallies within a trend. The specific lines within the system have specific capabilities or uses, however you want to look at it. I have 2 examples here with power pink lowest. This is one example. I have 2 lines on this example and another one in another spot. Today, the yellow vertical line is on August 16th, 2017. And that's today, obviously. The things that I want to point out here is the blue vertical line identifies the low point of the power pink line. And as you can see, it is lowest. It's what we refer to as pure lowest. It is lower than any other line, including power red. Typically power red, because it moves so quickly and has much longer line lengths than the other power lines, we often see power red at the bottom or power red at the top. And so oftentimes we will exclude power red when we say that power pink is lowest or power pink is highest. Likewise, we do the same thing, for example, like in the yellow twins. Zip and this next example has those 2 in mind, and I have that example in mind for that. And what I'm trying to point out is that we exclude power red. We also exclude zip green and zip Zion from calculations like the qualifications of the yellow twins, zip yellow and power yellow. When the pattern, the yellow twins pattern, is basically when both of those lines are lowest and going up, you're in an uptrend. When both of them are highest and going down, you're in a downtrend. When one of them is no longer highest or no longer lowest, the pattern is technically over and it's time to get out. However, there are often times when zip yellow goes underneath lines, but the trend continues. And so you just have to watch it very carefully if you continue to stay in the trade. Usually those can last 3 to 5 days, sometimes even longer. But back to this example here. The blue vertical line has the pink, power pink lowest, and the two lines that I want you to look at in this example are the power pink line and the power yellow line. And I'm going to move this vertical line over here. The yellow vertical line is now on the day when the power pink rose above the power yellow line. Also, keep in mind, we are everything we see in this example has just look at the 7 short-term trend lines. Power orange and green are going down and under 0. The trend trio is down, but it's just starting to climb up on the yellow line, and it's obviously going down on the blue line. Right in there, in between it, the trend blue did a BOC and started going back up, but it's very weak. And likewise, we can see that in the candles for 6-7 days after the vertical blue line, and 9 or 10 days after the blue line. I meant the yellow line and then the blue line. Excuse me, I said that wrong. All right, now this example here, if you look at the evidence, and this is what I'm trying to do as we're looking at this thing. I'm trying to have you identify with things that go down. I want you to, while I'm at that, I want you to look at this price blue line. We have a nice W pattern there with both sides of the W higher. It's basically forms a real nice W pattern. When you get a completed W pattern like that, the vast majority of the time it goes down the next day. You have a W pattern over here in the trend red as well. It's a little bit of a climbing W pattern, and you also have it down here in your power red. Actually, you got power red leaning up and power yellow leaning down on the W pattern. I want you to note also that swing gray is after the vertical blue line down here in the swing chart continues to go down. And the other thing that's an easy identification line is zip yellow. Notice that between the vertical blue and yellow lines here in the zip chart, that zip yellow has never gone up. It's just run flat all the time. So what I'm saying here is two things. You can, when you're looking at power pink and identifying, and when it goes lowest, it typically has a nice uptrend. This example that I'm showing you is not that. I'm showing you why it doesn't work in this example. Because when you look in this space here between the blue vertical line and the yellow vertical line, the yellow power yellow line is running basically flat. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. It is like when you think about the yellow twins, they're lowest and going up. The power yellow line, it may be lowest because we're excluding the red here, so basically the yellow line, the power yellow line would be treated as lowest as when it passed under the pink line, because we exclude power red in almost everything. I call it, when it is actually the lowest, I will say pure lowest. Like pink on the vertical blue line, power pink is pure lowest. It's under everything. Now, going to this next example, we have a green and pink line, and we have a condition that is a little bit different than what we saw there before. We have obviously on the day before the green vertical line here in the power chart, that was our low point, and we had a power pink that was lowest and very lowest. Power pink in this particular case was at -8. And so that's fairly good. We did have a pretty long red candle on that day, and on the vertical green line day we had a nice green candle going right back up to where it was, or at least the trading range went right back up to where it was the next day. When it did that, we had a real high power Zion. Power Zion there was at 2.8. Whenever you're getting around that range of 3, things will typically, if they stay in that range, they will you'll have nice price movements up. If they don't stay in that range, they will come back down. I said that, but I'm not sure that I made myself clear on that. I'm basically trying to say that when it goes up to 3, it can easily come back down, but as it travels around 3, bouncing back and forth, then prices usually will go up. Note the power yellow line in this particular case. This day right here, on one day after the yellow crosses under the pink, it goes down, and from then on it's going up. With the zip red, with the zip yellow over here, remember earlier I was talking about how we exclude things. We exclude zip green and zip Zion because those two, even though we identify them as part of the 22 MFR market force recognition indicators, they are tracking trades. They're not tracking a market force or a market pressure. And so again, we exclude zip green and zip Zion. And even though you see all of the busyness that's around the zip yellow line between the green and the pink line, there's only one day, and that day is right here, 2 days after the green vertical line. That's when zip red went below the zip yellow line. Now, technically, when that happens, the technical qualifications, because this is basically what? This is basically a red spike. And so it's zip red down under 50, and then zip yellow is supposed to be down and above 50, but we go all the way down to about 35. I mean, there's many times you can see zip yellow down to 15 and red under that, and it'll still be a red spike. So in this particular case, zip yellow is at 38 and zip red is at 20. And so it looks like it should qualify for a red spike. You do have zip green that's gone real high. Zip green on that same day is at 72. And so it looks like there's going to be a continuation pattern going up after this day, which in all likelihood it does. But also what happens is the trades are drop off, which is a little surprising. Sometimes we don't identify or don't see how or why things occur, but they are around the 50 line. So they're going up there. It's up at 72. The next day it is down at 49. So it drops down to 50, then it goes one more day under 50, comes back up above 50. So long story short, except when we see this red zip red go down underneath the zip yellow line, and it's in what I would refer to as a red spike, meaning it's going up the next day, you would then basically treat zip yellow as lowest and going up. I mean, it doesn't go up on this day, but after that it should go up if you just had the information on this second day after the vertical green line. And so, long story short, you've got a yellow twin pattern, zip yellow lowest, power yellow lowest, and both of them climbing up, which then gives us a nice 3, 4, 5 days of green candles. And note also that your swing line is going up. I mean, there's one day. This second red candle after the green vertical line is the only day that the swing gray line went down. After that, it's going up all the time. And it's tracking the forces within the market. It's been down at the low of the bottom cycle, and it's now going up. And again, if you go back to this first one we looked at, the gray line is just going down, heading south. And what happens to the price? It basically is flat, but it's obviously notching its way down. And likewise, we see that the zip yellow is remaining flat. When it's under, about 15, even 20, it's just, the prices are just not going to be good. And so when you have, keep in mind, we're identifying with, you can even look at this day right here. This would be the first day that Zip Zion is lowest. And on that day, that's the basic pattern rule. Zip Zion lowest and going up is a uptrend. And again, we would exclude the zip green from it. So zip green, on 2 days later, on this day right here, where the pink vertical line is, Zip Zion has crossed over the zip yellow line and is continuing up. And of course, in theory, we are in actual usage, if we were on this day, not knowing exactly what things were occurring, we would see that the zip pink, which is your price barometer, is moved over in a low angle up, and green has come way up. And experience will tell you that that's typically going to go up next day when it does that, when zip green is not at 100. And in this case, zip green is at 83, so there's plenty of room for it to go up above 100. Zip yellow is now crossed over 50. It's at 52. The swing gray line is continuing up. I mean, everything's moving in that direction. All of your swing Zion pink and yellow are all above zero and above all your other slow lines. So, likewise, you can identify that on this day here. That would be the second green candle. That would be back over here. On this day here on this chart, the power lines, the power 4, pink, blue, white, but not the yellow, so it's the power 3, I guess, with power Zion, have crossed over power orange and green. When they cross over orange and green, that's an indication of an uptrend. And so again, we see the notations of up movements. In our trend red and green example, whenever trend red crosses over green, you're technically in what we refer to as an uptrend. Now, obviously, when trend red does a BOC pattern, it can end up under trend green, and that's, you might say, the technical start of an uptrend, but it oftentimes is weak, especially if the if the BOC pattern is lower. So in other words, the right leg is lower than the left leg, then you have a BOC lower pattern, which basically tells you there's not much strength there. In this particular case, on the vertical green line, we can see the strength just in the candle in this particular case. Oftentimes you don't see that. You see small price movement with big indicator movement. So, and now what's happening is, all of this time between the green vertical line and right about here somewhere, I guess red is continuing up, and it would go up. Red would be there one more day, even though it went down, and because the yellow, pink, and blue are about ready to cross over the zero, I would stay in that trade one more day, and you'd get a green line, or excuse me, you'd get a green candle there, and at that point, excuse me, at that point, without looking real closely here, you can, that would be this candle right here. At this point here, we have, we're basically in a pink-green top, but the red, gray, yellow, and blue are very low. So you just don't know. Actually, the next day it does even gap up a little bit, but then by the end of the day it ends up being a red candle. So you still could have peaked out on this red candle right here. If you were in that trade, that would have been obviously the day to sell, and it would have been real easy to see because trend red would have started down, and like here, the closing on the pink vertical line was $24.14, and the closing the day before was $24.14. So you could have sold on the close and you wouldn't have lost a penny. But you would have seen that red line starting to go down a lot sooner than the end of the day, so you could have got out much quicker. And another thing, you would have saw the low angle up in the power yellow, and that would have given you indication that things are going down. Even though, look back here, the one day, right there on that day, power green has crossed over power orange, and you're starting, some will say, in an uptrend. But that's not necessarily true, because if you've heard me talk before, or if you've had a chance to listen to any videos, when lines are going down under zero, they're more powerful than they are when they're going up under zero. So in other words, there's more ability to drive it down when the lines are under zero than it is to drive it up when they're going up under zero. Same is true above. When lines are going when lines are going up and they're above zero, they have a tendency to have bigger candles or stronger movements than they do when they're going down and above zero. So that's just a general premise, but oftentimes you'll see that happen. Those are the ideas that I wanted to convey on that particular power pink, the short cycle indicator. I chose those two examples because one showed you, you're looking at the other lines in comparison. You're looking at the zip yellow line and seeing how flat it is. You're looking at swing gray and seeing it either go up or go down. You're looking at the power yellow in the crossover. When power pink comes up from the bottom and crosses over yellow, if yellow doesn't continue to go up, and like in that particular case there, that blue line example, it was just bouncing sideways up and down. And so when you're in something, or when you identify with something like that, you're obviously going nowhere with price. So the indicators will tell you a lot. This is just one example. Don't forget to look at the trend trio as well. When trend blue is lowest and under zero, you're typically in an uptrend direction, but again, it can be weak because the lines are under zero. But the trend trio lines will always turn around and in the direction of the cycle quicker than the other two groups. There's the orange, or the power group, and the swing group are slower to move than the trend trio. So again, it's just a matter of learning and seeing what's there, because the indicators are very powerful, and they will show you how to identify with anticipated price direction movements.